Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be taking a look at an interview with Ben Hartman,
Ooh, interesting.
who is the new regional vice president for Australia and New Zealand at Etaprise.
Okay, Etaprise.
Yeah.
Now, for folks who might not know them, they work with companies that have, field service teams.
Yeah, exactly.
Technicians and engineers and anybody who's, working on-site out in the field.
Yep.
And they help those businesses manage all kinds of things, from, scheduling and dispatch to even inventory and customer communications, that whole, field service world.
Exactly right. And Ben has a ton of experience in this industry, and this interview is just packed with his insights and his wisdom from his long career.
Yeah, it's really cool to see how he started and how those early experiences kind of shaped how he thinks about service as a core part of a business.
Right, not just an afterthought.
Not just oh, we'll deal with that later. No, this is fundamental.
Yeah. So the first question that Ben was asked in this interview was tell us about your background, how'd you get started in this field? And his response is really interesting.
Okay.
Because he starts by talking about how he actually began in the Netherlands selling capital equipment.
Wow.
So big, expensive machinery.
Oh.
But what he realized really quickly was that, selling the equipment, that was just the first step.
Yeah.
It was just the beginning.
Right.
What really mattered was what he called the triple S, which was service, spares, and supplies.
Interesting.
Because keeping those machines running smoothly, making sure there was minimal downtime, that was crucial for keeping the customers happy.
Oh, for sure.
And to do that triple S part, well, he realized you need two key things.
Okay, what are those?
You need skilled technicians.
Makes sense.
And you need readily available parts.
It's like having a great car with no mechanic or spare tires. You're not going to get very far.
Exactly. It's you got to have the whole package, right? The support system, that long-term vision.
It's not just about selling something and then walking away.
Right. It's about building those relationships and giving them great service.
Yeah, that long-term view.
Yeah. So the next question that came up was, what really lit a fire under you about the service industry?
Mm-hmm.
And he tells this story about early in his career when a crucial piece of equipment failed at a customer site.
Oh, no.
And it wasn't just about fixing the machine. It was about, the ripple effects of that breakdown.
Yeah, like dominoes, right.
Exactly.
Everything's connected.
Everything stopped. Production halted. Distribution was messed up. Deadlines were missed. And he realized how interconnected it all is.
Yeah, that service is the glue that keeps everything moving.
He said, quote, "It's not just about fixing the problem. It's about preventing it from happening in the first place."
That's a really good point.
Right. And that's where that whole being proactive, anticipating potential problems, and having the resources to respond quickly.
Isn't it being prepared?
Yeah. Really builds customer trust and makes those relationships strong. So then, they asked him, okay, what were some of the challenges you faced early on, in managing service? He's very honest. He's like, you know what? I wasn't always prepared for how complex this industry can be, especially when technology started becoming a bigger part of it.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about going from those paper-based systems to digital solutions,
Mm-hmm.
and how he kind of underestimated initially how hard it was to manage inventory and logistics digitally.
Oh, wow.
And he actually tells a story about a time when he had to fly in spare parts, which was super expensive.
Oof, that's gotta hurt.
It was a huge cost just to keep this one customer's operation running.
But I bet he learned a lot from that.
Oh, yeah. It was a big lesson in making sure you have enough stock, right?
Yeah.
Proper stock management.
Yeah, sometimes those tough experiences are the best teachers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. He didn't just learn from that mistake.
What'd he do?
He turned it into an opportunity.
Ooh, I like that.
He realized that by having extra spare parts on hand,
Okay.
he could actually become a supplier for other subcontractors in the region,
Smart.
which led to more service sales.
That's thinking outside the box.
It is, right.
Mm-hmm.
So then they move on to talking about technology challenges and, how Etaprise is tackling these things.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
And Ben points out, three main hurdles they've had to overcome.
Okay.
First one is integrating all these different systems.
Oh, yeah, that can be a nightmare.
Especially human capital management or HCM and finance systems.
Right, because HCM, for those who don't know, that's all about managing your employees, payroll and benefits, training, all that stuff.
Yeah, all the people stuff.
Yeah.
And connecting that with your field service software can be a real pain.
For sure.
But Ben explains that Etaprise has invested a lot in building their own integration and automation capabilities.
So they're making it easier to connect those dots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So their software can talk to all these other applications that customers might be using, so it's a much smoother, more efficient process.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. The second challenge was finding a good hosting provider.
Okay.
Because they have these big global software as a service, SaaS ambitions.
Right. They're not just in one little region.
They're all over the world.
So they need like a really reliable backbone for all that.
They need someone who can handle all that data and keep things running smoothly.
Yeah, and be able to scale up as they grow.
Exactly. So you know what they did?
What?
They went with the big guns, Amazon Web Services or AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform.
It's like having an all-star team backing you up.
It is. So they have like options depending on the customer's needs and budget.
That's smart.
Yeah. And then the third hurdle,
which is?
and this one's really relevant to our deep dive today.
Yeah.
Scheduling automation.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It's huge for businesses with field service teams because you're trying to juggle like technician availability, travel times. You got to factor in their skills.
And then the customer's needs on top of all that.
It's like this crazy puzzle.
It is.
And this is where Etaprise gets really interesting because they're using AI, artificial intelligence, to power their scheduling.
Oh, wow.
So they can take all this data,
Yeah.
analyze it,
Find the best solutions.
optimize how they use their technicians, and minimize that downtime.
It's like having a super smart assistant.
Yeah, it's incredible. And this is where Ben starts connecting these ideas to like the bigger picture of the service industry.
Oh, how so?
Well, he was asked about how the service industry is evolving, and he talks about how, we depend on services more and more in every part of our lives, right? Whether it's getting your car fixed or your appliances repaired or even just getting packages delivered.
It's true, services everywhere.
It is. It's everywhere. And he really believes that this reliance on services is only going to grow.
Which means service management becomes even more important.
Exactly. It's not just like an extra thing anymore. It's crucial for growth, for keeping your customers happy.
It's a core business function now.
Yeah. And he says that businesses got to embrace technology and innovation to stay ahead of the game.
Which is exactly what Etaprise is doing. Right?
They are. He talks about their commitment to AI-powered scheduling, how they're always pushing the boundaries of technology.
And they're not just focused on the big companies, right?
That's right. He mentions how they're also working with small and medium-sized businesses,
Yes.
SMBs, especially in Australia and New Zealand.
Which makes sense because a lot of those field service providers are SMBs.
Exactly. So they're creating solutions that are tailored to those specific needs.
So it's about finding the right tools and approaches for each business, not just a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. Exactly. And that leads into a question that a lot of people have, which is, why would a company that's already using an ERP system, like enterprise resource planning, why would they need a separate service management solution?
Yeah, because a lot of those ERP systems do have modules for service, right?
They do. But Ben explains that even like the most advanced ERPs can have limitations when it comes to like the very specific needs of managing field service operations.
Ah, so it's like trying to use a general tool for a very specific job.
He uses this great analogy. He says it's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
I like that.
You might be able to make it work, but it's not going to be a perfect fit.
Not ideal.
Not ideal at all.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes that Etaprise takes a different approach.
How so?
They leverage their knowledge of the service industry to build solutions that really fit what their customers need.
It's like a custom-tailored suit.
Yeah. And they're not just using AI, they're also bringing in the Internet of Things, IoT, into their solutions.
Oh, wow, that's cutting edge.
It is, right.
Yeah.
So they can gather data from all these connected devices and assets.
And use that to make even better decisions.
Powerful insights.
Yeah, I see.
And then he talks about something that I think is really important.
Let's see.
He talks about personal values and how those align with Etaprise's culture.
I like that.
He uses this acronym, RITCH, to describe his core principles.
Okay, RITCH. What's that stand for?
Respect, integrity,
Yeah.
trust, communication, and honesty.
Oh, I like those.
Right. And he talks about how those principles are woven into how Etaprise does business.
They're not just words on a wall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They believe in being upfront with their customers, building strong relationships, and proving that their solutions work through things like business value engineering, or BVE,
Okay.
and total cost of ownership, or TCO, analyses.
Which basically show the potential return on investment for the customer.
Exactly. so they can see how Etaprise can help them reach their goals.
That's a great way to build trust and demonstrate value.
It is. And as they're wrapping up, they ask Ben, like, what advice would you give to someone running a service business?
Okay, what's his secret?
And he focuses on this idea of workforce utilization, which makes a lot of sense.
Right, because your workforce is your most valuable asset.
Yeah. He says you need those real-time scheduling tools to make sure you're using your technicians' time wisely, managing your spare parts efficiently, and having supplies available when and where you need them.
It's all about optimization.
Yeah. And he highlights the importance of good contract lifecycle management, optimizing your inventory, and making sure your supply chain is running smoothly.
It's like having all the pieces working together in harmony.
Yeah. So he basically challenges the listeners to think about their own businesses and whether their processes are really set up for success.
That's a good challenge.
It is.
Makes you stop and think.
It does, yeah.
It does.
So picking up where we left off, they start talking about, like, Ben's vision for the future of service management.
Yeah, and he really hones in on this idea of, like, the first-time fix rate.
First-time fix.
Yeah, like getting it right on the first visit.
Oh, okay, so no repeat trips, no callbacks, just boom, fixed.
Exactly. And he points out that this is something a lot of companies, they really struggle with. Yeah, it seems so basic, but I bet it's harder than it sounds.
It is. There's a lot that goes into it. And Ben explains, like, why this is so important.
Aside from just, making the customer happy.
Right. It's not just about happy customers, although that's obviously huge, right?
Word of mouth, good reviews, all that.
Yeah. But it also, like, directly impacts the bottom line.
Okay, how so?
Fewer trips means you're saving money, you're more efficient, and ultimately, you're making more profit.
Makes sense. Less wasted time and resources.
Exactly. Everybody wins. Then he starts talking about this shift towards, like, proactive asset maintenance.
Proactive.
Instead of waiting for something to break, you use data and technology to, like, predict potential problems.
And fix them before they happen.
Exactly. So you're going from this break-fix model to a predict and prevent model.
Like taking your car in for regular checkups instead of waiting for it to, like, totally die on you.
Exactly. And he says this can save companies a ton of money in the long run.
I bet, because those emergency repairs can be a nightmare, both time and money.
Absolutely. So, the interviewer asks, okay, how do we actually do this proactive maintenance thing?
Yeah, what's the secret sauce?
And Ben talks about all these cool technologies coming together, like AI, machine learning, predictive maintenance, IoT, even remote-first approaches.
So it's like having a crystal ball for your equipment.
Well, not quite a crystal ball.
Okay, but getting closer.
Getting closer, yeah. It's all about gathering data, analyzing it, spotting those patterns.
And then you can predict when something's going to go wrong.
Before it actually does.
Yeah.
And Ben emphasizes that these technologies, they're already making a big difference.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a game changer for the service industry.
It is making businesses more efficient, more proactive, more customer-focused. And he thinks this trend is only going to get bigger.
So staying ahead of the curve is going to be key.
Absolutely. Then he brings up another interesting trend, which is this idea of outsourcing service operations.
Outsourcing?
Yeah, like handing those responsibilities over to specialists.
So instead of doing everything in-house, you're finding experts who can handle it better.
Exactly. And Ben explains that a lot of companies are doing this so they can focus on their core business.
The stuff they're really good at.
Exactly. It's like, why try to do everything yourself when you can partner with someone who's, like, the best at what they do?
Makes sense, especially with how complex things are getting.
It is. It's like, hiring a plumber to fix a leak instead of trying to DIY it and potentially making it worse.
Right. So what's driving this outsourcing trend?
Ben says it's a few things, like technology is getting more complex, customers expect 24/7 service, and downtime is just so expensive.
So it's a combination of factors pushing companies in that direction.
It is. And he says businesses are realizing how important uptime is.
Like how much downtime actually costs them.
Exactly. It impacts everything: productivity, revenue, customer happiness, even their reputation.
Makes sense. You don't want to be known as the company that's always breaking down.
Right. And he ends by saying that Etaprise, they're coming up with new ways to support this trend.
Oh, interesting. So they're evolving too.
They are. Always thinking ahead, trying to anticipate what their customers will need in the future. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it shows they're really invested in the success of their customers and the future of the service industry as a whole.
Absolutely. I think what really struck me about Ben's interview was just, like, his genuine passion for this whole service world.
Yeah, you can totally tell this isn't just, like, a job for him.
It's not about pushing software or chasing profits.
It's about, like, the real impact that good service can have.
On businesses and the people they serve.
Exactly. And that ties back to his, what were those principles again? RITCH, right?
Respect, integrity, trust, communication, and honesty.
Yeah, those. And it's cool that they're not just like empty words.
They actually put them into practice, like with those business value analyses.
Showing the customer, like, hey, this is how we can actually help you.
Proving the worth of their solutions. Yeah. It's like they're not just selling you something, they're partnering with you.
Makes a big difference, that kind of approach.
It does. But, thinking about Ben's point about companies outsourcing their service, it got me wondering, what about the companies that don't outsource?
What does that mean for them in this, changing landscape?
Right. If more and more businesses are turning to those specialists.
Do the others need to, step up their game even more?
Yeah. Do they need to become super tech savvy, invest heavily in training their people?
Or is there going to be, some kind of hybrid model that emerges?
It's a good question.
Probably a mix of everything, honestly.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Some will go all in on building up their internal teams.
And others will find those partnerships to fill in the gaps.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no one-size-fits-all answer.
But the key takeaway is, you got to be aware of what's happening.
And adapt.
This industry isn't slowing down.
So those who embrace change, the new tech, those are the ones who are going to thrive.
It's exciting in a way. Lots of opportunities out there.
Definitely is. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Ben's interview,
what are your takeaways, listener?
What stood out to you? What got you thinking?
Think about your own field, your own work.
Where are the opportunities to improve service? To use technology better?
To put those RITCH principles into action.
We've just scratched the surface here.
But hopefully this has given you some food for thought.
New ideas to explore.
If you want to learn more about Etaprise and what they're doing,
you can find them online. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring.